Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. Gareth here from tastytudes.com. In this video, I'm going to discuss and demonstrate how to set up a simple letterhead in Adobe InDesign. In the previous video, we set up a simple business card. In this video, we will be taking it a step further and creating this letterhead. Now, if you're new to InDesign, I'll be taking you through all the details and explaining all the things you need to be aware of when setting up a document like this. Later in the course, we will be exporting this document ready for print. So let's take a look at what we will be creating in this video. So here is the letterhead document open in InDesign. Currently, we are looking at this in preview mode. So if I press W, we will enter into normal mode. And here we can see all the guides and frame outlines. Now, if you're new to this course and wish to take a closer look and get all the assets to build this letterhead, you can get it all in the project folder. Download link is in the description. Remember, you will also have to install the fonts when you open the document. That can also be found in the project folder. So previously in the course, I spoke about how I designed this composition. In this video, I will also be referring to my scamp design so you can get an understanding of my process. So here in InDesign, we can see we have two pages to the canvas. We have the front and the back. On the front, we have the main typesetting for the letterhead. We have the logo and the address details up in the top right. Notice in the background we have a 4-column structure. This is setting the grid which I can align the composition to. I'll press W to enter preview mode and we can get a better look at that. So if I come down, we can see the back of the letterhead. Here we have the logo and brand motif. So now I'm going to set up a new document so we can start this from scratch. But before that, with the project folder open, navigate to the design process folder and open the design process PDF. So here are my ideas for the letterhead and how I developed the idea before moving onto the computer. This is what we are going to create in InDesign. So on this occasion, I'm going to go with the middle approach. I'm going to have the logo positioned to the left. I'll place the contact details over on the right. Type justified to the right. I'll place the text block to the right of the logo, giving some space down the left, and I'll justify the type to the left. I'll also include some of the brand color in the form of these diagonal overlapping color shapes at the bottom. And on the back of the letterhead, I'll create a composition reflecting the brand style, with this motif incorporating solid color, strokes, and the pattern. I'll place the logo on the top left. So let's make a start. So in InDesign, I'm going to come up to File, New, and choose Document. Up will pop the New Document menu. So it's from here I'm going to specify the document size and properties. So first I'll set the intent to print. I'll set number of pages to 2 because all we want here is a front and back. On this occasion, I'm going to uncheck facing pages. I'll start with page number 1 and come and set the document size. Now again with the project folder open, navigate to the project assets folder. In that, open the project brief folder and open the brief document. So in the brief, it specifies the dimensions of the letterhead. We need to make the letterhead the size of an A4 page in portrait. So back in InDesign, I'll make sure the orientation is set to portrait, select paper size and choose A4 from the preset. Now for columns, I'm going to set this to 4 and set the gutter size to 2 mm. For the margins, I'm going to set each one to 20 mm. Next, I'm going to toggle down bleed and slug. Now back in the brief document, it states that bleed on all documents should be set to 3 mm. So back in InDesign, I'll set the bleed to 3 mm on the top, bottom, inside and outside. Great. So once I'm happy with the composition, I'll click OK. Upon click, we will now have the new document set up. So if I press W repeatedly on the keyboard, we can toggle between preview and normal mode. Now in normal mode, if you cannot see the guides, press Command:. So in normal mode, the red line around the outside of the canvas represents the bleed, and the magenta lines on the inside represent the inner margin and the column guides. Later, when we come to export the document, you will see how the bleed comes into play. So now I'm in normal mode, the document is ready, we can start composing the design elements. But before that, if I come back to the brief document, it states on the print instructions that for the letterhead, we will need to set this up to be printed using Pantone Colors. Okay, so before we start to build the design elements, we need to make sure we have the correct Pantone colors ready to apply to the design. Currently, in the swatches panel, we have a bunch of default colors. So with the project folder open, I'll navigate to the project assets folder. In that, open the branding folder and open the branding document. So here we are in Adobe Illustrator, where the branding document was originally composed. Here we can clearly see the Pantone color references. So now I'm going to take the Pantone references and get the colors into InDesign. So to make this real easy, I'm going to select the type that states the Pantone references. I'll copy and come back into InDesign and just paste. So at a glance, I can see the Pantone references. And I may have to zoom into this a little. So in InDesign, I'll come over to the swatches panel. If you cannot see yours, you can come up to Window, scroll down and activate your swatches panel there. So I'll come up to the top right menu with the little menu icon. From the menu, I'll select New Color Swatch and up will pop the menu. So from the color mode, I'll click and look for the Pantone Solid Coated option. I'll select that, and then in the Pantone box, I'll look over to my reference in the canvas area and begin to type in the first swatch, 433. When that appears, I'll make sure it's selected and click Add. And just like that, we have the new Pantone swatch in the swatches panel ready to use. Now we still have the new Color Swatch menu box open, so I'll go ahead and type in the next swatch, 424, and click Add. 7702, I'll click Add. And lastly, 2593, I'll click Add and then click OK. So just like that, we now have the 4 Pantone colors in the document. So to tidy my swatches panel, I'll select the top swatch I will not use. With Shift held down, I'll select the last swatch just above the first Pantone and click the delete icon at the bottom of the panel. So now all we can see are the colors we want to use. Perfect. So with the selection tool, I'll select the reference in the canvas area and press backspace to remove this. So now I am ready. Let's start with the logo. So for this, I'm going to jump back into the branding document and select the logo that is set on the white background. Now currently in Illustrator, this is a group of individual vector shapes that's been grouped together. With the logo selected, I'll copy, come into InDesign and paste, and there is the logo. Now because InDesign works with vector shapes, the vectors from Illustrator will be compatible with InDesign, so the logo will carry across just fine. So I'll select the logo and move it up to the top left of the page, and perhaps make it just a little smaller. So I'll place my mouse cursor over the bottom right point, press and hold Shift and scale down like so. I'll press W and that's looking great. But now we have a problem. If we take a look over in the swatches panel, we can see we have some new swatches here. We have some CMYK swatches. Now how did they get there? Well, when we pasted the logo from the branding document, it carried the swatches across because the vectors were set up in CMYK in that document. Bear in mind that the colors applied to that logo are now CMYK, and we do not want that. We need them all set to Pantone. Now to fix this is quick and easy. So over in the swatch panel, I'm going to remove the CMYK swatches and replace them with the Pantone. So I'll start with the blue CMYK swatch. So I'll select it, right click and delete. Now upon trying to delete it, InDesign will say, hang on a second, you have design elements in the canvas area with this color. If you delete it, you need to replace the color. So from the define swatch in the menu, I will select the blue Pantone I wish to replace it with. Upon click, the CMYK swatch will be removed and the design element in the canvas area that was previously filled with the CMYK swatch will now be filled with the Pantone swatch. Very convenient. So I'll do the same for the rest of the CMYK swatches. I'll delete them and replace them with the Pantone color. Soon I'll have my logo set to the correct Pantones and the CMYK swatches removed. So now I'm going to place in my body copy. So back in the scamp design, My idea here is to place the copy justified to the left to the right of the logo, allowing for some nice clean space down the left hand side. So back at InDesign, I'm going to place my type in from the second column. So I'll press Command R so I can see my rulers. Now I'm going to click into the top ruler and drag a guide down. I'll drag down in the pasteboard area and release just on top of the logo. Then I'll click and drag another down to place it directly under the logo, making sure to release click in the pasteboard area. So here we can see we have this nice space here between the top of the page and the top of the logo. So I want to create the same space below and use that as a marker to start the top of my type. To do this is quite easy. Here is a neat trick. So I'll use the rectangle tool to quickly draw a box from the top of the page to the top of the logo. With the box created, I'll drag it below the logo and place it like so. So now we know that this space here is exactly the same as the space above it. So I'll drag another guide from the top ruler and place it under the rectangle shape. Once happy, I can now select the rectangle shape and delete. Perfect. So now I'll add the type. Now this is a letterhead. There won't be any type on this when it's sent to the printers. This is going to be blank for the company to print on them when they want to. Now in this instance, we are going to place in some type to make sure it works with the composition. We need to set this document up so the type can easily be removed without deleting it. So now I'm going to come over to the Layers panel. Currently we can see we have one layer called Layer 1. Well, I'm going to double click on this and rename to Letterhead Base and click OK. So all design elements that will be printed will reside on this letterhead base layer. So I'll come to the bottom of the panel and click the little page icon to add a new layer. I'll double click this and call it Copy Guide. So with the Copy Guide layer selected, I'll come into the menu and select the Type tool. Now in the canvas area, I'll click on the exact point where the bottom guide meets the second column, and I'll click and drag across the inside margin and drag down like so to create a nice large type box. Upon release, we now have the type prompter ready to place in some type. So with the project folder open, navigate to the Project Assets folder. In that, open the Copy folder and open the Letterhead document. In that, I'm going to copy the filler type, come back into InDesign and simply paste it in like so. In my case, it's pasted in at a default font. So next, I'm going to format the type. So with all the types selected, up in the control panel, I'll click into the font name and type Open. I'll select Open Sans Light. I'll set the font to size 9 and press Enter. So that's now looking a little tight. I'm now going to create some more space between the lines. So I'll come up to the leading and type in 15 and press Enter. So that's the copy guide, and this can be given to the company to instruct them on what font style to use when they eventually print on the letterhead. So next I'll create the sign-off. This is going to be the name and job description of the person this letterhead is for. Now this will be a permanent fixture on the letterhead, so now I'll come back to the Layers panel and make sure to select the letterhead base layer. So with the Type tool active, I'll come over and click and drag out a type box from the second column across. I'll come into the copy document and copy the name and job description. Come back into InDesign and paste into the box. Now, if the type style is not the same as in the box above, I'll quickly set the style. To do this, I'm going to use a little trick. So I'll select the type in the new box, I'll come over to the menu and select the eyedropper tool. Now with the eyedropper tool, I'll move it over the type above and click to select the type. Upon click, we will not only copy the colour, but also the style. Easy. But on this occasion, I want the font for both to be bold. So with the type still selected, I'll change the style to bold up in the control panel. So now I'll select the name and change the font colour to the blue Pantone colour. And then I'll select the job description and change the font colour to the purple Pantone colour. So next, I'm going to place in the contact details up at the top. So this time, with the type tool active, I'll click in the top right hand corner and drag out a box like so, and I'll drag it down to meet the guide that aligns with the bottom of the logo. I'll come into the copy document, copy the contact details this time, back into InDesign and paste into the box. So with all the types selected, I'll choose the eyedropper tool in the menu and select the body copy of the type below, and that will set the same type format. Easy. Now on this occasion, I want the type to be aligned to the right. So up in the control panel, I'll click the right alignment box. So I'll now click into the type, select the address details and set the color of the font to the purple Pantone. I'll select the phone details, set that to the blue Pantone, and select the web address and set that to the light grey Pantone. I'll choose the selection tool in the menu, click off to deselect the type and the text box, and click W to view in preview mode, and that's looking just fine. So all that's left to do on this page is place in the solid color shapes at the bottom. So looking at my design PDF, we can see here that I would like the purple on the left to overlap the blue shape on the right, around the middle. The purple shape on the left being slightly larger than the shape to the right. So in InDesign, I'll press W to enter into normal mode. I'll come over into the menu and select the pen tool. I'll come over to the far left bleed a third of the way up. I'll click on the bleed and come down and across to the bottom bleed and click another point. I'll come across, put down a point on the bottom left bleed corner, and back up to join the first point to complete the shape. With the shape complete, I'll be sure to change the inside fill color to the purple Pantone. Next, I'll do the exact same, though on the other side. So with the pen tool, on the far right bleed, I'll drop a point. I'll come across and drop a point on the bottom bleed, overlapping the purple shape like so. I'll come across, drop another point in the bottom right bleed corner, and up and click on the first point to complete the shape. And I'll be sure to set the fill color of this shape to the Pantone blue. Great. So with the selection tool, I'll select them both, right click, scroll down to Effects and choose Transparency. In the menu that appears, I'll type in 20 and click OK, and press W to take a look in preview mode. So now we can see the two shapes are lighter. We can see the overlapping effect here around the middle. Okay, so that's looking okay, but I want to tweak my shapes a little. So I'll press W and then press A to activate the Direct Selection tool. With the Direct Selection tool, I'll click on the top point of the purple shape and move that up by pressing and holding Shift on the keyboard and pressing the up arrow on the keyboard. Then I'll click on the bottom right point and again move across with the arrow keys. I'll click on the points of the blue shape and tweak them and press W to take another look in preview mode. That's looking a little better. So with the selection tool, I'll click the blue shape, right click and choose Effect and click on Transparency. And I'll change the transparency of this shape to 50%. And that just adds more richness to the overall look and feel. Nice. So once I'm happy with the color, I can now move on to the back page. So looking at my design PDF, we can see here the type of composition I would like for the back. Here we have a combination of shapes and strokes with the pattern in the middle. So back in InDesign, I'll make sure I am in normal mode and I'll start with the strokes. So this can be done quite easy. I'll come over to the menu and select the stroke tool. With it active, I'll draw a stroke line like so from the top left, starting from the outside bleed line and dragging across down to the right to the outside bleed line. Upon release, I'll make sure the stroke line is set to 1 point in the stroke panel, and the stroke color in the menu is set to the blue Pantone swatch. So next, I'll use the stroke tool again, but this time start from the far right bleed line. Click and drag across to the bottom bleed line, like so. Upon release, I'll make sure the stroke line is set to 1 point in the stroke panel, and the stroke color in the menu is set to the purple Pantone swatch. Now, if I am happy with the strokes, great, but if I feel they need to be tweaked a little, I'll press A to activate the Direct Selection tool and click on the end points and move them up or down until I am happy. So next I will add the solid shapes. So with the pen tool active, I'll start with the blue. So I'll start below, I'll click a point on the outside bleed line, and I'll click a point to join with the stroke. Now ideally I want to click another point at the end of the stroke, but I must be careful because by clicking on the stroke edge, it will join with the stroke. So I'll be careful just to click over the stroke a little further away from the bleed line, like so. And then I'll click on the starting point to complete the shape. And I'll make sure the fill color is set to the blue Pantone. Next, I'll do the same for the purple shape. With the pen tool, I'll start at the bottom of the bleed line. I'll click up to line up with the purple stroke, and I'll click up and further out from the start of the stroke, then down to meet the bleed edge and across to complete the shape. And I'll make sure the fill color is set to the purple Pantone. With the selection tool active, I'll click off the design elements and press W to take a look in preview mode. So next I'll zoom in, press A, click on the shape edge, and with the arrow keys, make sure it's aligned perfectly with the strokes. Once I'm happy with the selection tool, I'll click and drag over the blue stroke and shape, right click and select group. Now because they are both grouped together, they become connected. So now if I right click, scroll down to effects, choose transparency and set to 50% and click OK, they will now be set to 50% seamlessly together. So with the selection tool, I'll select the bottom two elements, right click, choose group, then right click, choose effects, select transparency and set the transparency to 20%. So now the colours on the back of the letterhead match the colours on the front of the letterhead. So next I'm going to bring in the pattern. Now we created this pattern in a previous episode, ready for the letterhead. If you have not seen how I created the pattern, I suggest you watch this video to learn how that was done. But now I'm going to bring in that pattern. But before that, I'm going to create an image frame to place it in. So looking at my design PDF, we can see I want to place the pattern between the two coloured shapes. So back in InDesign, I'm now going to draw a shape between the two coloured shapes and place the pattern into that. Now, if you're not familiar with InDesign, to get an image into our document, we place them into frames. These frames don't necessarily need to be boxes or rectangles. We can draw custom shapes and place images into them. So I'll press W to make sure I'm in normal mode, and with the pen tool, I'll draw a shape between the space between the two shapes, making sure the shape also continues out to the bleed lines. With my new shape, I'm going to set the colour to transparent, then with the shape selected, I'll press Command D to place an image. So I'll navigate to the project folder, navigate to the My Project folder, into the Assets folder, into the AI folder and select the grey pattern, Pantone. Upon click, the pattern will appear inside. Now if you're following along and you did not create the pattern earlier in the course, then press Command D to insert the image. Instead of navigating to the My Project folder, navigate to Finished Example, ID Work Docs, Assets, AI and select the Pattern Grey Pantone from there. Easy. So once your pattern is in the area, it's now the case of repositioning the design element inside the area. Now if your image is looking a little blurry, be sure to come up to View, scroll down to Display Performance and select High Quality Display. So I'll press Z to activate the Zoom tool, press and hold Alt and click to zoom out like so. So I'll come into the menu and select the Direct Selection tool. With this selected, I can click into the image area and select the image that is inside the image frame. And if we look closely, we can see the outline. So if I start to click and drag, I can move the image around like so inside the frame. So I'm going to place my mouse cursor over the top left point, press and hold Shift and click and drag out like so. This will scale the image up. So here I'm looking to scale the pattern up so I can get a composition like this and the hexagons are not too small. Once happy, I'll press V to activate the selection tool and I'll click off to deselect. And I'll press W to take a look in preview mode. So that's looking great. but the grey of the pattern is a little too dark against the other colours. So I'll right click on the shape, choose Effects, select Transparency and set it to 50% and click OK. So now all that's left to do is place in the logo. So I'll come back to the front page, I'll select the logo and copy. Come back to the back page, I'll press W, into normal mode, we can see the guides. I'll paste and position the logo up to the right and against the inner margin to reflect the logo on the front. I'll press W to look in preview mode, and that's looking great. So if we are happy, press Command S to save. Navigate to the My Project folder in the Project folder and save the document in the Work Docs folder as Letterhead. So that completes the letterhead. Now remember, on the front page, we placed the copy fill on a separate layer. In the Layers panel, we can now toggle the copy on and off. When we send this letterhead to be printed, we will not be including this copy. This will be blank, ready for the staff to feed the printed letterhead sheets into their LaserJet or inkjet printer. So now we are able to edit the name and contact details for the next person and save a new version. Now, if you watched the design process video early in the course, in that video I encouraged you to think about your own ideas. So as an exercise, if you have any of your own ideas, please try and create them using the same techniques demonstrated in this video. So that's how you can set up a simple letterhead in Adobe InDesign. Once your letterhead is complete, you will then be ready to export the PDF ready for the printers to print out your document. We will be learning later on in this course exactly how to export the document ready for print. But before that, it's time to set up the last item on our list, the 12-page brochure. In the next video, I'm going to demonstrate how we can set up a 12-page booklet brochure in Adobe InDesign. See you in the next video.